Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ. I got confused
You're on
here.
the
You're on
wrong
the other
side.
side today.
Oh, I don't know what's going on. I'm sitting at the left hand. I don't know, but well, I guess we should begin with the COVID
I'm getting it up right now.
and the
As of
COVID.
yesterday, we have 105,138 total cases. Total deaths is 8,053. Bristol County cases is 8,399. Now, according to the mayor, we have up 4 new confirmed cases, bringing us to a total of 1,627, and we have 1 new death, bringing us up to 108.
Yeah. Well, again,
And I'm just still trying to figure out how, if our numbers, according to the mayor, are so good, why is it that the governor and the State Department of Public Health is saying that we're a hot spot? I mean, the two sides aren't talking at all, and that's kind of questionable. It's kind of making me feel like I don't know which way is up.
well, welcome to the club. I don't think anybody does it, even with the instructions. Actually, as you can see, I got a dress shirt on. I had to go to a wake this morning, and so I just got in. And as I turned that on to get on the link for the show, I see they've changed tactics in the COVID virus. Oh, Abby's tail's on today. We at least got her tail in. And there's Abby's tail. And they're saying they're changing tactics again. So I don't know. I don't think they know what they're doing. Obviously, because it's something that's in a state of flux and transition all the time. Because the longer we go, the more they learn, the more data they get. Realistically, all they were doing was taking educated guesses, and that's still basically what they're doing. So no wonder if the numbers are confused, it only fits the entire narrative on a disease, CJ.
Well, it's interesting. I received a message from Elaine Pravdi this morning, and Elena Pavidi is now, I guess, acting as the mayor's press secretary or special assistant. Sarah LaPointe has since resigned this week. And I brought up a couple of issues because there were so few people at the press conference yesterday. And I also mentioned to her that any press releases should be sent out in PDF format, not in Word document format, because not everybody has Word, especially if they're Apple people. And she says, "Hello, CJ. Thanks for the pointer. We are transitioning our media staff, so we appreciate your patience as we work out the hiccups." Elena. So obviously, for those people who are in the media, they need to just see the fact that it's going to happen slowly but surely. So, and I just noticed that we are live on YouTube Live right now.
Wow! Hello there, live YouTubers. We have to get the word out that we are live again. So all you fans that are watching at 5:30 tonight or 5 o'clock tonight, we are now on live again. Hopefully,
Which will probably be about 9:30 in the morning all the time, so some of you may miss it. But this morning we're at 10 because of Chip having a prior meeting. But it's going to work out. We're going to get back to being live everywhere, and this new system that we're using really seems to work out. I like it a lot. I really appreciate that FRC Media, and especially Steve, has worked with this system and is making sure that our show gets out there for people.
Disregard that background noise. That's Abby playing with the noisiest toy she can find right now because I just got home and she wants me to play it. So disregard it. If you hear some kind of squeaking, it's not any kind of something going wrong with the pipes or something. It's Abby trying to.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, yesterday the mayor had a press conference.
Yes.
Speaking at the press conference was the mayor, the new police chief, and the district attorney. And this was about the uptick in violence in Fall River. You know, that thing that we used for tourists, how to attract the tourists, the gun shootings and whatnot. And I think the mayor is taking his lead from Matt Malone. If you're going to move to Fall River to commit crimes and raise hell or whatever the case may be, move somewhere else. Well, didn't Matt Malone say that if you don't like it, move to Russia?
But he did suggest actually a place to move. The man didn't. He just said find a different place to live or a new place to live. Which obviously, I mean, that's the feeling of everybody. But again, that's a problem that we created in this city, and you know that, CJ, because we remember many years ago when the housing authority was taken over by the brother of a mayor, and they gave him a contract that said that the salary, there would be bonuses based on occupancy, and then they began to advertise for people. And they bust as well. You know, didn't you have a relative that was bringing people in from Pennsylvania to our housing authority periodically?
Yes.
I mean,
that's my son-in-law.
And that's the problem. That's right, and that's the problem because what do you think we're getting from Boston and Lowell and Lawrence and Pennsylvania? We're definitely not getting the best and the brightest. Let's face it. If you're running a housing authority in Boston, and you can get rid of 100 people, you're not going to get rid of your best tenants. You're going to get rid of your worst tenants. So, and didn't we just have a crime committed? And they were talking about these people living in, I think the two that just had the shooting incident down there in South Park. It may be confusing, but there was one that originally came from Boston and it was sent to Fall River. They said, why do you live in Fall River? Because we were sent here. We came here from somewhere and went to Boston, and they put us in an apartment in Boston. Then they said, you're going to Fall River. And Mr. said, okay, well, let's dump them everywhere. And this is the problem that we have with the drug facilities, with the dumping ground, and for the criminals. And, I sympathize with the mayor because what are you going to do? What you've got to do is come up and limit housing. I mean, there's been a call to we have far more than the mandatory amount of public housing in this city. But we continue to try to fill it up so people can make money. And what's the result? We get a bunch of criminals here.
We're going back to where we were under Eddie Lambert days, okay? And I remember when Eddie Lambert said we don't have a gang problem. Do you remember that time?
Oh, yes, yeah. Oh.
And we're going back to that now, and it's really scary because we just recently had, what was that, last month, where we had the federal raid. The FBI came down and they took out members of a Boston gang that were in Fall River, that were in New Bedford, that were doing their work down here. And it kind of scared me a little bit in the fact that this is becoming the crime center of the state. This is becoming the drug center of the state. And we've created that here because we have an administration and previous administration which support programs like STAR, which thinks STAR is wonderful. You have a governor that supports STAR. You have elected state representatives which support STAR. You have an elected state senator which supports STAR. And all STAR is doing is bringing down property values and bringing more crime and drugs into Fall River. But nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to talk about that.
Oh, no, CJ, they see it. And shame on anybody that's from this area that supports expansion. As I said, isn't it amazing that everybody wants equality, inclusiveness, in everything except the bad things? Send all the criminals to Fall River. Send all the drug addicts to Fall River. Of course, Charlie Baker's in favor of Star. He likes Star. You know why? Where does Charlie live?
Not here.
Abby made it to the screen. Crazy. But she made it to the camera. She made her debut. That's my American Bulldog, Abby, for you fans out there. She's a puppy and she's still a little loony. But
We John Decker for the dog.
Let's face it. Yeah, when Bentley and Abby make appearances, that's a special show. But where does Charlie Baker live? Charlie Baker practices NIMBY, not in my backyard. Send them to the Riff. Send them down to near the Rhode Island line. Send the criminals. Send the junkies. Of course they support it. And of course our local politicians support it because they got a lot of money. Who knows what kind of donations they're getting? But the fact is, we should share the wealth, as we've said numerous times. Why do we have casinos spread out through the state of Massachusetts? To share the wealth. Although I don't think casinos are going to make any money ever again at the rate they're going, because all they've become is slot parlors. So they spent a lot of money to have a slot parlor. But the reality is, we share the wealth with the casinos. We share the lottery proceeds. We require that every region in the state of Massachusetts have a drug treatment center like Star? No. And why not? Because we are the dregs. We are the deplorables of the state of Massachusetts. And shame on our representative delegation for not pushing for regional drug treatments. Shame on our local delegation and our local politicians for allowing. She's figured out she can get up on this now. Oh my God! Okay, now I won't be able to get rid of her. So, but shame on them for allowing this housing authority to stay as large as it is. I don't know what the stats are, but we're going to have to look them up. See. At one time, there was a minimum requirement for public housing. We were well above that. We're still, I believe, well above that. And why don't we begin to reduce public housing? Because guess what? They'll take some of the trash out and send it to another city. Let's share the wealth. Let's share the wealth with public housing. Let's share the wealth with the drug addicts. And then I'll feel a lot better.
I hear you. I'm looking that number up right now. As a matter of fact, it's very interesting. I believe it's about 10%, but I'm looking right now. Comes under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 23B, Sections 25, 26, and 27. And Mass General Law 121B. Very interesting to see how this works out. In Commonwealth versus Nelson, a Boston Municipal Court judge erred in finding the criminal defendant guilty of trespassing while the defendant was found to be trespassing the halls of Boston Housing Authority. This gives the tenants a lot of rights, I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, we had that issue when we were having the recall. Remember, we looked at the Supreme Court case that held the fact that that a tenant had the right to allow anybody they wanted. They had the freedom to allow anybody into an apartment. Therefore, people could actually go in. But then they had security issues, and they stonewalled it. But remember when they were knocking down the project up on Rodman Street? They wanted to get rid of that project.
I remember that case. They still haven't provided the housing that they had said they were going to.
Yeah, and the thing is, we went over all these requirements and all the stats, which have changed since then. But I know we have far too much public housing. And what do we get in the public housing, for the most part? I actually had a conversation with the mayor a week or so ago about something, and we got into this and said, well, the crime and some of the issues we have with student achievement levels, most of these people are not originally from Fall River. They didn't come up through the Fall River public school system. They came in through other school systems, and the criminals didn't come up in Fall River. And of course, the criminals, as you referred earlier in the show, you talked about them coming down from Boston. Of course. I mean, why wouldn't you bring all your crime wave down to a city where we have barely enough police to police the city under normal circumstances? If you go to Boston, they've got a 3,000 or 4,000 man police department. So they've got a lot more resources than Fall River. So the police are already stretched to the max in this city. So
yeah, and I think
these
this
are the kind of cities that they look for because the police are they're overextended.
well, and what the mayor said in this press conference was that he needs to call in the FBI, the ATF, the state police to come in and assist the Florida Police Department in taking control of this gun wave and this crime wave. But my problem is this: if our police department had been funded properly, had the money been used properly instead of for administrative positions, if the positions that were created, we were creating enough street patrolmen and not more lieutenants and captains in administrative positions. Because remember, if you want to get rid of a lieutenant or a captain and they retire and you get rid of their position, you don't have to fill it. You don't have to create another one, correct?
If it's a staff position, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's an administrative position, it goes away. And maybe it's time that we start doing that and making our departments smaller at the management level, at the administration level, and making it heavier where it needs to be, where the people do the work. But it's the same thing in city government. It's heavy on the management, low on the people who are doing the work, right to the point that, I mean, just look at what's going on in City Hall. Bay Coast is being our collector, because if you try to pay a bill in the collector's office, they send you to Bay Coast. What kind of bull is that? My taxes are paying for that service. If I want to pay it in government center at the collector's office, that's where I'm going to pay it. I'm not going to pay it to a private entity. Well, it's the same thing with police. We're going to go out to the FBI. We're going to go out to the ATF. We're going to go out to the state police to come in. I remember a few years back when they wanted to bring in the sheriff's office to assist with neighborhood patrols, and the police union went ballistic. They did not want that. Why aren't they going ballistic right now?
Well, I'm wondering how the FBI can get involved, because this doesn't seem like this is within the jurisdiction of the FBI. The FBI deals with crimes that are federal crimes or interstate crimes. So I'm not sure. ATF, obviously, you could call the ATF in because they're firearms. But look, we're out of control in this city, and we know it. But, I've got to give the mayor some credit, because we always try to be fair. And the thing is, I think he's the first mayor I've ever heard that's actually acknowledged the problem.
Exactly.
We got a gun problem. No kidding. We got a shooting like every other week. Of course we have a gun problem. And the scary part is, we were talking about guns the other day with a friend of mine, and he said he wasn't retired then, but a good friend of his, and I know the guy too, so he's a mutual friend, who was a police officer, told him a long time ago. He said, remember one thing, all the bad guys have guns. See, this is my issue with gun control, because the only time they control guns is with law-abiding citizens. They make you jump through hoops. They minimize the amount of the size of the magazine. They restrict your weapons. They do everything. And they think that works, but it doesn't, because crime continues to escalate. Murders in Chicago have not. And what are they going to complain? That idiot Beto O'Rourke, that moron, stuck his head up out of the I think he's been hibernating with Punxsutawney Phil, but he stuck his head out and said we have a murder culture or something. Like, well, gun control laws are going to fix it. Well, guess what? Chicago's got tremendously stringent gun control laws, but they're on the road to 750 murders this year. 750 murders or more. And they average 500 murders a year. That's like a war zone. So, this is all bullshit, political bullshit, because they won't face the problem. The criminals will buy illegal guns. They'll always have guns. They'll always have weapons. They're going to protect their investment in drugs or whatever. And that's a reality. And passing laws don't work because they haven't figured out something really simple. Criminals don't abide by laws. That's the reason they're criminals, you pinheads. So, this is ridiculous. Again, we're getting in a narrative. All these people, there were a couple of murders up in Chop. Well, were they legal guns? I doubt it. How many murders do you think happened in Chicago with legal guns? I doubt seriously if there were very, very many of them. But this is all BS. But I gotta give the man credit. He at least acknowledged we got a problem. I mean, as you said, Eddie Lambert, there were gangs running all over the streets of Fall River. What did Eddie say? We don't have a gang problem. So, you have to recognize a problem before you deal with it. So, City Council, you're on notice. We've got too much public housing. We're importing too many criminals. We've got too large a drug problem because of Star. Because we import all them here. And
yet you have some, not all, so you have some elected officials funding Star to expand their services. And I am tired of hearing, well, that is to provide drug rehab services to people. It's not for them to expand, but they expand with that money. And the only way we're going to stop the expansion is to stop the funding. And that will not happen as long as we are in a blue state. As long as we're in a blue state, it's not going to happen. You get into a red state situation, and they will cut the funding to these things dramatically because Star doesn't have a tremendous success rate. And I've spoken to some people who have recovered, okay, or who are in recovery, and they say the same thing. They didn't get any help from Star. They did it themselves. And I think that's the big point that has to be made. Star is just a tool. And for most people, it's a tool so they can just get out of jail free card or go somewhere for 3 days, 7 days, 14 days to get out of trouble and then go right back to what you were doing before. And that's a problem in and of itself.
Well, and the other problem is that Star obviously wants to get larger because then they get more money, then they get higher salaries, then they get more staff, and they get bigger budgets. And why? The reality is, like all blue states, the rich don't suffer the consequences of this behavior. You're funding Star why? To keep all the animals down on the zoo in Fall River. You want to keep all the animals down in the zoo. You're not going to go to Newton and Wellesley and build a Star and get it funded. They'll run them out of there on a rail. Look at the Cape. They did an HBO special about drugs on the Cape. They got a new one now. What is it?
Hightown.
Yeah, about P-Town. And guess what? With all the drugs on the Cape, and it's an affluent area for the most part, where do they send their drug ads? They don't have, there's no giant Star down on P-Town or in Hyannis right near the Kennedy compound. You don't see that. See, that's the problem with these blue states. Because look at Minneapolis. They shit all over the people of Minneapolis. They ran businesses out. They let these animals run amok on the streets. They let them run amok. And now the consequences to the working people and the people who are trying to live a peaceful life are gone. But where did they live? Well, look what happened. All of a sudden, Chop disappeared when they got on the front steps of the mayor's house. By the way, did you notice when they talked about the mayor's house, she had an undisclosed address?
Yeah.
And it took a city councilor to lead them to the mayor's house. See, this is the problem. Therein lies the problem. Nancy Pelosi doesn't care how many people defecate all over the streets of San Francisco and urinate all over the streets of San Francisco because she lives in a mansion. And if anybody gets near her mansion, they'll call in the National Guard, the police, the SWAT teams, and everything. When they got near her house, they were out of there so fast, there was a vapor trail coming out of their anal sphincter. They were gone. And that's the problem. The problem is that in the blue states, the people who are making your life miserable don't have to live in the cesspool that they create because they live in a nice fancy house in an area that's well policed and quiet. And if it isn't, they will rectify it immediately. You just get living in store.
Definitely, that's for sure. And it's interesting to see, as you said, you give the mayor credit, and I have to give him credit for that too, that he is recognizing that we have a problem that our police force obviously can't handle. And I don't know how the police union's taking that statement or how they're going to take working with these outside agencies, but it's something we need. It's going to be interesting to see because there's a transition right now in the mayor's office. Sarah LaPointe resigned. So the media staff is in an uproar. I just received an email from Elena Pavidi, which said, "Hello, CJ. Thank you for the pointers. We are transitioning our media staff. So we appreciate your patience as we work out the hiccups." Because there are problems. Because some people didn't receive information about the press conference yesterday. Some people did. And people are saying, is that favoritism? Again, I think we got the answer that the media staff is in a transition and they're trying to work out this situation. But it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out, especially over the weekend. Black Lives Matters was a big thing around here, but when you see black on black crime, there's no protests. And that's where most of black lives get lost, with black on black crime. And that is sad. I understand that they were doing it because they want to stop police brutality, but let's look at the reality. The numbers of black on black crimes are much higher than the numbers of police on black crimes.
And you're right, because I saw them discussing that. I'm not sure how accurate the stat was, but I'm sure it's ballpark. But they had an individual who said that they had averaged 40 incidents of police improper action, and this year it was 10. So there is actually less. So they're going in a positive direction. But there were 8,000 black on black murders. And that's the thing. And even the black community is outraged now because you got the parents of these children who are being shot saying, how do you expect the rest of the people in this country to think that Black Lives Matter when we allow black lives not to matter? There's no outrage about 7 and 8-year-old children being murdered.
I hate to cut you off there, but we're out of time. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Remember, stay angry, stay safe, and hold your politicians accountable. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Monday.